Hi everyone, my name is Tiffany. Welcome back, or welcome if you've never been here before. Today I want to wrap up my September reading. I see the structure of this video being in clips. I want to come to you after I've gotten a few reads underneath my belt. I like doing that, a lot more than sitting down and going over everything. And in the last clip, I will be giving you my stats and my favorites. Everything is going to be listed down below along with timestamps just in case you want to skip around. And at this point, I have 3 books to fill you in on. So we're going to start with A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. Oh, I was not at all surprised when I looked into the author and found out that she was a poet. The writing in this is absolutely beautiful. This was stunning. And it's really about Dracula's wife. It is a record of all of the abuse that she endured. It is a way for her to put it in print and ensure that it actually happened despite all of his gaslighting and his aim to blot out everything about her that he couldn't tame. And it is also her final love letter to him and a way to showcase her reasons for why she had to kill him. Oh, I loved it so much. It starts from when he first turns her, takes you through time, and sort of gives you a behind the veil peek behind the lore. I absolutely loved this. I thought it was also very validating for anyone who has suffered under abuse and been made to feel like that was normal. Okay, like anybody that's had an aha moment to their own trauma. The prose were absolutely just gorgeous and breathtaking, but it was also consumable. I rated this a 4.5. It is not a romance, but it's definitely already like a favorite of the year. I need to read more from her. Next, I read The Undertaking of Hart and Mercy by Bannen. I picked this up because I wanted a cozy kind of read to sort of shift me into the darker things that I'm going to be reading for spooky season. This is an enemies to lovers. It's a pen pal romance set in a fantasy world that was very interesting, where our hero Hart is a officer of sorts tasked with basically taking out what are essentially zombies in this world. It is endless and lonely work. And Mercy is an undertaker. She's keeping her family business afloat. And they really specialize in a wholesome and personalized burial. They're up against this huge sterile franchise. And so going in, I thought this was really cool. Hart's out there taking them down. Mercy's laying them down. And they do butt heads. However, there were a few things that fell short for me. I think because I'm primarily a romance reader, I found this to be incredibly character driven, which I absolutely loved. And there were glimpses of this world that I just wanted more of. I almost felt like I was the passenger on a freaking road trip. We finally get to our destination, okay? And it's always that moment like when you're on your way to your accommodations and like you're going through downtown or whatever, and you see all of the interesting shops or the terrain and you're so excited to be there, but you're whizzing past it. There's not anything in clarity or sharpness until, you go out the next day or that evening to explore. And that's kind of how I felt as I was dropped into this fantasy world. It's not that I want info dumping, but I want my hand held a little bit because the concept was so cool. I mean, there are aspects of Hart's backstory that were interesting. He's a demigod. There are gods in this world. And because of his sort of arduous existence that seems very lonely, he starts to write letters out into the ether, and by magic and for romance reasons, they make their way to Mercy, and they're able to communicate in this vulnerable way with each other through these letters while having these very contentious moments together in person. And so I was really hoping to have more time spent with them outside of writing the letters and really to dive into some of the stuff that was brought up within them. It felt as though for me that they were like at an arm's length away. So the romance, or really the declarations of love, in my opinion, just kind of came out of nowhere. And I even went back to like the second act to see if I had missed anything, to see if something was like going over my head. And I don't think that it was. Like I said, I think this is very character driven. I think this would be a great book for someone who primarily reads fantasy and is looking to get into romance. And there were so many cool things about this world that I want to know more about. So I definitely want to keep my eye out on what she continues to write, because I do think that she can nail it. For me, I rated this a 3 just because of some of the aspects within the romance that didn't quite hit. The reasons for being enemies was quite flimsy for me, as well as how quickly they arrived to love. However, again, I thought it was a cool world and it was an interesting read. I'm glad that I picked it up. And lastly, I mean, this is a first for me from this duo, and I rated it 5 stars, and that is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. We know my ring light works, baby. I don't know if you can see it. I will say that this cover is very misleading. It is so autumnal. Get up into it, because this deals with some heavy topics. I think it handles grief and loss in such a beautiful way, being that Macy's mother has passed away. She lost her at a very young age, but has left her and her father with these loving letters that chart the milestones within Macy's life, ways that her mother would have handled certain situations, and her father follows those to the letter in order to honor her memory. And oh, this is a Friends to Lovers. And it follows Elliot and Macy from their kind of childhood, I would say pre-teens, right at the point when her and her father move into like a summer cabin next to Elliot's. And I just thought that this also dealt with flashbacks in a way that worked for me, because they really served to inform the present. And I was invested in both the then and the now. And in the then, I just felt like, oh, it was so heartwarming to read them share the awkward and vulnerable coming of age moments together. And all the way up until the present, where they randomly run into each other after 10 years of being estranged. And oh, this is also a second chance, where Macy is engaged in the present and realizing that Elliot is the only man that she's ever loved. I mean, he is bookish, he's genuine, he falls first. And throughout the book, you're really taken through them growing up through the summers together up until why they fell out. And I will say that that reveal is not my favorite. It also wasn't something I was completely sold on, but it didn't blot out my belief in their connection and the way in which the story was told. I just thought it was so beautiful. Like, this was good. I really enjoyed it. And I was surprised. I hadn't picked up Christina Lauren before. A couple of times she's made her way onto my TBR and a couple of like my little author games. So they. But I'm happy that I picked them up, because I definitely recommend it for an autumnal read if you haven't read it. It's definitely fall feels, and I absolutely loved it. So, another 5-star favorite. And at this point, I am done. I am currently in the middle of something for the Twisted and Taboo readathon, but I will be back later on. I am back, okay, to wrap up what I read for the Twisted and Taboo readathon, as well as the books that I read because of it, because I continued on with that TBR afterwards. And I apologize. I am meant to do a vlog. I really started out strong there by giving you footage, but I just decided to wrap it up here, because the way that I like to do my vlogs is actually take you along with me. And so if I don't have B-roll for you, I might as well just do a clip. I apologize. I want to put out things that are at least at the same quality or better. And that's just a personal like pact that I made with myself when I started this channel. So I'm going to wrap these books up here, starting with Black Sheep by Brynne Weaver and Alexa Harlow. Oh my gosh. I'm telling you, if you enjoyed St. Abby's Mindfuck series, then you're going to like this book. This was also giving me Dexter vibes, being that Bria, our serial killer heroine, had a mentor that came into her life at a young age, taught her how to kill without getting caught, as well as deal with her urges and psychopathy while being public facing. That's really the Dexter element, because she isn't a recluse. She's actually a doctoral student who's conducting research on the margin of error for eyewitness accounts, which brings her into proximity with our hero, who happens to be a professor at the university that she's studying at. And their meet cute even happens in a coffee shop, like it does in the Mindfuck series. And I just loved that this is a romance where the hero falls first. When he sees her, it's not just her beauty, he's really clocking her behavior, and I just loved it. And because I haven't done a favorite quotes video in a minute, I'm gonna share a quote, because the writing in this was also good, okay? Because he instinctually knows, even though their eyes don't meet, that she's clocking him staring at her, and this is what she's thinking, okay? She says, because I have to do it, "There was a humming current in the air between us, a vibration, desire, but something darker too. It felt like another predator was there in my midst, but one with a different kind of hunger to sate." I just loved it. And so their first meeting is her presenting her proposal for research. And he kind of does a little like Professor Faux Pas and doesn't read it and tries to go into the meeting blind, and realizes that she's the same woman from the coffee shop, and she reads him for filth intellectually. And what I love about Bria in this book is that she's incredibly flawed and just okay with that. She accepts all of the parts of herself, and I guess it's because she isn't neurotypical. And so when there are moments that she's questioning whether or not he's capable of loving her when she isn't able to do that in return, or she believes that she isn't, those are poignant. And so in this book, it's very interesting because her plot of vengeance against a secret society that wronged and traumatized her as a child is very elaborate, which brings in that Mindfuck series element for me. And also, because he is so freaking gone for her, he refuses to be her professor on the research and puts her off on a friend. Yet they're still working together, because Eli, our cinnamon roll I'm falling first of a hero, is trying to take down the same society that she is, and he's working with the FBI. And so like the stakes are really high here, okay? She has her student hat on, serial killer hat on, trying to stay 5 steps ahead of everyone while falling for him. And I just, I loved this. I loved the sort of like mystery plot. It is very suspenseful, and it also works in tandem with their romance. The reveals on why she's going after this order come a lot sooner than I was expecting, so I really appreciated that. And the freaking twists and reveals on the plot and why Eli is so hell-bent on taking them down just kind of gobsmacked me. So I thought this was incredibly entertaining. And the one thing that it had that I wanted a little bit more from, you know, other books, I need to stop like comparing this to S.T. Abby's Mindfuck series, but I really feel like if you liked that, you need to pick this up. In any serial killer romance, want to feel like their psychopathy, their gray matter is mused on for a few beats, because I love that posing question of whether or not they're capable of love. And this did that for me. They also spend a lot of time together building that connection. I mean, he's sold on her, okay? And they both have demons, and the dynamic was really interesting because they share the dominance in a way. His sort of shadow self and darker edge that she's privy to, like clocks, okay, their first time meeting really comes out during the steam. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. It was sexy, okay, this was like dark, it was thrilling. I had a great time, okay? I rated this 5 stars. I rated it 5 stars. I think it's 4 on Goodreads. Sometimes I ebb and flow. I get very excited after reads, but now that I'm talking about it, I'm rating it 5. Like, it's 5 stars. It's a 5-star rating. Next, I remember reading Sue Brown. It was the second in her MM bodyguard mafia romance. I just want to get the title correct. So I'm going to refer to my reading update because that's like Bible, dark secret. I apologize. I know you can see it, but you don't. This follows Paolo, okay, who is on the run after murdering someone that's very important within the Italian mafia. And now that his brother is in charge and missing, he sends in Tiger to go after him. And Tiger is sort of weary of the security game. He's tired of the clients that he's been watching of late. And he only takes the job because his best friend is requesting it. And so when he learns that Paolo has actually been kidnapped, he rescues him. And this turns into a very almost heartbreaking journey of healing for Paolo because he can only trust Tiger. And it's even like his heartbeat is what's soothing to him. It is this very like slow journey to healing and also journey into daddy kink, okay, because he does harbor a sort of self-hatred because of his own sexuality. And so I just thought that the aspects of healing in this were beautiful. Tiger is very caring and almost possessive in those acts of care, which I always like eat up. But I think for me, I ended up rating this a 3. Some of the beats in terms of the daddy kink really moved a little bit quickly because of everything that Paolo was dealing with and trying to accept. And so that's the only thing that it really was for me, is some of those beats, although sexy. Let's just take a moment. They just happened a little too quickly for me. And I always love an MM Mafia, or of late I've enjoyed them because of how they sort of dismantle the traditions within that world. I like where this ended up in the end. So I rated it a 3. I am enjoying the series. I am going to continue picking them up. Next, I read Don't Tell Me Now by Honey Chanel. Now, this is a sapphic novella where Rhea is given as payment to her husband's billionaire boss because he was caught embezzling money. And it is the billionaire boss and her romance. I actually enjoy the dynamic between them, being that I don't remember her name. I liked how like stern and dominant she was, but her dominance was really just showering her in gifts and praise. I will say that the steam in this, there were elements within the steam that were lacking, to be quite honest. And there were other scenes that I think were dived into quite well. This also gave me travel vibes and that they're on the move. And I just really liked this woman that has been let down in her marriage being given as payment, but is actually empowered by it because of the way this woman strategically goes about finally having her. So I thought this was like short, it's steamy, it's fun. Some of the elements within the steam could have been just described better. It was the writing within that. It was quick, you know, and it was a fun ride. I ended up rating this a 3.5. Next, I read the group book for the readathon, and that was Forbidden Obsession by Raina Wade. This was like completely bonkers, and for me, I'm used to a bonkers novella, okay? I was reading Jessica Kane all throughout college just so I can continue reading because of the curriculum. But anyway, so this is about a yoga instructor who is being stalked by a private investigator, I believe, if I remember correctly. But she sort of knows that she's being watched by him, and he is just utterly obsessed, but also feels like he's too old for her. And she was just along for the ride. I don't know why I found this to just be hilarious. His obsession was just on like a level 10 for me. And the fact that she was just like down for it all, I don't know. I rated this a 3 because it gave me a freaking kick. Like I wasn't expecting their backstories to be aligned as well. And this sort of like plot of being adopted and things of that nature kind of surprised me about it too. So that's really what had it land at a 3 for me. I had a good time with it. I don't know. It was fun. Next, I read The Kings of Kearny by Navessa Allen. I really enjoyed this MC romance because it felt fresh. I have never read an MC where women are actually members and not club bunnies, okay? I just haven't seen it. I also like the fact that they're all veterans. That's a requirement for membership. And some of the beats that are spent on the camaraderie in serving, the things that they've seen in relation to civilian life, I loved. And I will say that the communication in this was just so mature. Anyway, this is following Krista. She's a bartender, and she's also the sole provider for her grandmother that's in a nursing home, who's a complete freaking riot. I loved her grandmother. And she's been pining over Jacob, who is the enforcer of the Kings. They've been sharking and dancing around each other. And when he finds out that she too is a veteran, he sort of ropes her into the investigation that he is doing at the nursing home her sole living family member is in. So she is invested in helping him. And as they're doing that, it is their romance. I also love the fact that they're both scarred. Him emotionally, she has an injury to her leg due to her time in the war. And so the way in which he accommodates and handles that within the steam just took me out. I just love to see it. I also loved to just see how it never gets in the way of what they need to do within this sort of like mystery plot and element. I just love that representation, okay? I was here for it. And so I will say with this one though, the last 28% did happen pretty quickly there. It felt a little anticlimactic in terms of what was being built up with the mystery element within the nursing home and what he's trying to do to sort of ferret that out. But the moments between them and within their romance, because he's very like mysterious and guarded with his emotions and the way that she coaxes that out and the communication that they have with each other, it was just like stand out, and I absolutely loved it. So I ended up rating it a 4, and I really wish there was another book. I mean, Navessa, please. I just love her writing and the way that she approaches recurring themes that I've read so much, but she makes it feel like fresh and new. So anyway, I really enjoyed this. Next I read The Pool Boy by Nikki Sloane. This was so freaking hot. It's an age gap romance between Erica, who's in her 40s, just coming out of a 20-year marriage, and after finding out that her husband's been cheating on her with his boss, and her best friend's son, that's her pool boy. And oh, I really enjoyed this because it just felt like a moment for Erica in her marriage. It was felt within that prologue that she wasn't seen, she wasn't made to feel beautiful or sexy. And when we meet her in the present day, she is feeling herself, you know, happy within her career. She just got a boob job. You know, this is like a fresh new chapter for her. And so she's doing things a little differently. One of which is laying out topless by her pool. So when Troy walks in on her, it's a moment, it's a little awkward. And it was one of the sexiest freaking scenes after she gathers herself and goes to check up on him in the shed and walks in on him, just like handling the weight of that moment for him because he's always been interested in her. And I just found this to be incredibly hot. And I loved how into her he was. He was so captivated by Erica that the age just simply didn't matter for him. I also wasn't expecting this to really involve her helping him claim his dreams that he never thought he would be able to. She is working within the music industry. They are in Nashville. He is a singer with incredible talent, which she clocks, and he trusts her enough to help him with that. Also, there's a lot in terms of his backstory and the relationship that he has with his mother and really needing to stand up for what he really wants to do with his life. And so I loved that. I liked that a lot of those questions, you know, and like practical reasons for why they can't be together due to age do come up. I just loved those beats that I wasn't expecting from this romance. And like I said, it's Nikki Sloane. It was incredibly freaking sexy. The sneaking around, the use me when you freaking need it. Are you kidding me? I mean, it was just catnip. I loved those elements. So I ended up rating this a 5 during the readathon, but I am gonna rate it a 4 here. Sometimes I feel differently after time has gone by. I had a lot of freaking fun with this romance, but I am gonna place it at a 4 here, just because I can, and on Goodreads. Next, I read Cross the Line by Becca Steele. I saw that Tori was reading this, and so I had to pick it up. It's an MM sports romance. This is sort of like a bad boy, golden boy mashup where the bad boy is kicked off the team or really put on suspension for having weed in his locker. And so the golden boy that is just as good as him. I mean, can we talk about heated rivalry vibes? Okay. The golden boy, who's from America, is put in his position. And it is almost an enemies to lovers because it's very heated between them in the beginning until our American golden soccer player can clock that he's into him. And it goes off from there. And it's also, I don't want to say gay for you, but it is definitely the, illuminating like relationship for one of our heroes, and he's willing to just go for it. I enjoyed this. I rated this a 4. I actually had a really good time with it, and I want to continue on with the series. Maybe I'll pick it up next month, although I have a lot planned. You'll probably be seeing this after because it takes me forever to get my wrap-ups out. So I don't know, but Anyway, the next book was Breaking Meredith by Izzy Sweet and Sean Morati. Anyway, this is a 5-star read, okay? I'm not even gonna bury the lead. I freaking loved Simon. This is a stalker romance. And I am going to tell you what happens in the first chapter. I don't think it's a spoiler because it's in the first chapter, because you need to understand the kind of heroine that we're dealing with. Meredith, I'm going to call her a black widow of sorts, and she uses her beauty to take down men of means and that are also causing harm within society. And I love that about her. Yet in the first chapter, she's kind of caught up with a Saudi prince, and she ends up murdering him. It was either be assaulted, okay, or push him overboard. And so that is what happened, which, leads her to be hunted. And so she has to seek the help of her brother that she's been estranged from for years, because he is, I want to call it mafia. This is the 4th book within the series. I skipped because I was told that I could, and I'm going to tell you, I believe that you can. It feels like mafia. Lucifer is the head of a major criminal organization. They have their fingertips on everything, even within the government. And so Simon, who has been stalking her for years, I'm not going to reveal how long because that moment is just luscious and beautiful in this. But Simon is tasked with keeping her safe while they figure out how to take out the Saudis that are hunting her. And so this is just a luscious captive. And it also felt like it was an enemies to lovers, because although Simon is completely obsessed with Meredith, I mean gone, he's also stern and almost annoyed by the fact that he has to be in forced proximity with her because it could reveal his feelings that he's had. And she's also not easily tamed. She's messing up his routine and order of things. He also doesn't give threats. They are promises if she doesn't fall into line. He is not neurotypical, and he's also a tech whiz, which I love. Okay, I love a keyboard pianist, okay, which is my word for saying a character that is well versed in the arts of computer science and languages. And I love how he even likes the weather to be within the same environment that his machinery is in, like cold, sterile. And she cannot stand that about him. She cannot stand that he is so robotic and strict. She wants out, and the romance between them is just so freaking delectable. It's spicy. The things that she has to say about being the sight of his obsession and how that feeds her, how that's empowering, the way in which her body betrays her, kind of like places a freaking reciprocal, okay, on something that I don't like. I usually don't like when the heroines bend because of their flesh. But in this book, because she fights, I'm talking scratch, bites, and pulling hair, fights him on his control in this book, it just feels like something is clicking to place once the physical element happens between them. There's spanking involved as well, okay? And the reveals on how deep his surveillance on her goes were just beautiful, being that you aren't sure if he's capable of anything more than just this full body obsession of her in terms of like love, right? And the reveals on that are beautiful. And the lengths that he goes to keep her safe, even from herself, okay, are just bonkers. But I absolutely love this. This is so freaking good. I'm sorry, you need to pick it up. I'm also going to continue on with the series, but I want to ask Melissa, like, which are her favorites? Oh, this was so freaking good. And it's dark. I am going to say this is dark. Like, I'm not kidding when I say that the lengths that he is willing to go to in order to keep her safe are incredibly insane. Okay? He goes there, but I just had a luscious, dark, and twisty time with this. I just can't help it. It's so on brand. This is definitely going to be a favorite of the month. I'm sure you'll see it in a later clip. Anyway, the next that I read, okay, because of the Twisted and Taboo readathon, but I wish that I would have gotten it so I could hit the spot, was Sordid by Nikki Sloane. But my battery is dying. Is it a video of mine? If it's not, so you know what? For you, it's going to be really quick. I'm just going to talk about that in the next clip when I wrap it up. I'm just going to try to wrap it up in the next clip, and I'll start with Sordid because my camera is literally going to... Okay, so I'm back with Sordid in the month of November, but we're back. Okay, we're wrapping it up, and this is definitely a dark romance. This is a part of my dark romance recommendations video that was a collaboration with Samantha because it is dark, okay? There are trigger warnings for non-consent and dubious consent. I do not recommend that you pick this up if that bothers you because Luca, our hero, does assault Addison at the very beginning of this book. Addison is a student, she's pre-med, and Luca was once her TA who she was secretly pining for. And at the top of this book, at a Halloween party, he fully takes advantage. And after assaulting her and failing to gaslight her into forgetting about it, he decides to hold her captive as a means of protection, but also it's his chance to sort of coerce her into falling in love with him. He knows that it's the one way to protect her from his ruthless mafia boss of a father, but also it's an opportunity for him to finally win her because in all of his manipulation and tactics that are completely insane, a little cruel, okay, it is a little twisty, I did clock the care that he had for her and how much he was actually paying attention, how much the pining was mutual. And so this is very dark. It's very different from all other Nikki Sloanes, but I thoroughly enjoyed where they landed, and it does have that edge of me understanding why Luca, okay, fell in love with her, but also feeling like she fell for him because she was cornered to, and it just worked out. Okay, it's one of those. It's a little like twisty. It's a duet. And I'm very excited about the second one because that one's following Luca's brother. And after the events in the third act, okay, I just want to see who the heck is gonna lasso that man in. There's a lot of questions that I have. So I gotta wrap this duet because I do have the second one as well. And I had fun with this, okay? Like I said, okay, it's dark, it's dubious, but it was delightful in a way. I was surprised at how she wrapped it up. Now, I want to say next I read, but I'm not quite sure on the order. I should probably have my phone, but there's only a few more books to wrap up this month with. So I do want to bring up Again by JL Seeger. And since reading this, I have seen that Crystal read Restore Me. Also, Cheyenne has read it. And so I really want to pick that up. This is a novella, and it is about a divorced couple's second chance, how they are forced into proximity now that they are going on a vacation to support their best friend's marriage. And so I just loved this because the hero is hell-bent on winning his wife back. And the way that she puts words to an entire marriage, okay, with the small amount of real estate that she has in this novella, was just like heavy hitting. It had an emotional punch, and I just love the way in which he saw her, the way that he could speak to a glance, a move towards him, and how that telegraphed so much from before. I just found it absolutely incredible. Like, this was just beautiful in terms of prose and in terms of really giving me just ages in a moment, right? It was depth and depths. So I really appreciated that about this novella. In fact, it is probably my favorite of the month of September. And I will say there is a trigger warning for miscarriage. It's not on the page, but it's definitely at the center of the trauma that they sustained while marriage was in trouble. And the way that this is dealt with, it's just, this is a new to me author that I need to jump back into. Like, Restore Me will probably be my next from her, and it's time to start knocking them down, okay, in the month of November. Oh, I cannot wait. But this was a standout in terms of a novella that's packing a lot of story and an emotional impact. I know I also read in the month of September Flawless by Elsie Silver, and I won this freaking physical copy from Jen. I was so excited to win. Every single month she does an exclusive review for her patrons, and she raffles off a physical copy that has all of her annotations. And so I was just excited. I am in for a reread, and I like the way that she annotates, because it's like I've read a little bit of this, actually, the first few chapters, because it feels like she's having like a conversation with you. And so, like, I've just been loving it, and I need to do a full reread. But this is a sports romance, okay? And I'm saying it that way because I remember Caitlin from the Love Librarian saying it was an interesting take on a sports romance, and I absolutely agree, because Rhett is a famous bull rider, and the meditations on what that entails as a sport I thoroughly enjoyed. And at the top of this book, he says some disparaging things about milk, okay? That pisses off a huge sponsor, a lot of fans, okay? He does come from a small town in Canada of a huge farming community. So yeah, people were mad, okay? And so now his agent has to do the work of revamping his image. And so he sends his daughter in, Summer, who happens to be a vital part of his company. I love how that tracked. That was telegraphed really well. And their first meet cute in that initial meeting, the way that he sees her as a shark. I just loved that. Summer is sent in to sort of be his handler, okay? A babysitter, if you will. So he's not really excited about that. And this is her opportunity to be taken seriously and hopefully get more clients and not be seen as privileged by nepotism, but for the merits of her own work. And so that's the little tenuous relationship between them. And the added cherry, okay, was that this is the man that she's had posters of on her walls. And now he'll be knocking up against them. Anyway, this is their romance. And I liked how it was a slow go of it in the beginning. And there are just these moments where he sees her for who she is. And they're mainly in moments where she's looking out for him. These acts of care. You know, he is harboring a lot of injuries because of the sport. And so the way in which she helps him soothe that, I loved those moments. And there were a lot of reveals in the second half of this book about her backstory. She is dealing with a chronic illness in this book. There's a lot of ex-drama and just some like heavy familial things on both sides. I love Rhett's family in this. Heartless was everything. But we'll get to that in the month of October. Anyway, the wrap up. I mean, we're fully into November. Anyway, I loved this. And at the time of reading, I rated it a 5. So I'm going to honor that. I'm going to honor that in this video. I will say that I love Heartless more. And so I'm just an Elsie Silver stan at the moment. Cheyenne has an interview with her. Her and Caitlin interviewed Elsie on Cheyenne's channel, and I really enjoyed just getting to know more about her, how she started reading books, which she recommends. So that was a lot of fun, and I'm here for it. I've got to read her trilogy that she has on KU. I believe the first one's called Photo Finish, so I'm hooked. I know I also read Blindside by Kandi Steiner. That was the second of hers that I picked up, okay? Because I started out with Whiskey and I thoroughly enjoyed that. The first part of September is up on my channel. And Blindside, it just gave me Teach Me Seduction, okay? And I live for that, okay? Wrapped up in fake dating. And this is following Clay. I believe, if I'm wrong, you can lash me in the comments. But it's Clay and Gianna, okay? Clay is a football player. I believe he's a safety. And Gianna is the team's assistant PR coordinator. And at the beginning of this book, Clay is having some issues with the media, being that he just got out of a 5-year relationship with the woman of his dreams, okay? I mean, they're in their early 20s. But what I loved about this is that Gianna's sort of tasked with giving him media coaching. And she's been pining for this sort of like pseudo-intellectual musician, okay? We know the type. And they enter into an agreement to fake date to make their targets jealous. And of course, it is their romance. And like, Gianna, I loved her as a heroine. She's bookish. She is just coming into herself and her capabilities in terms of what she contributes on the job. And the way that Clay saw her, how their relationship also hit on an emotional level, being that she helps him recognize how to choose himself as opposed to putting all others before him, and how he reads, okay, her romance novels for tips. I mean, I love to see it. You can read my pink tabs, okay? Read my pink tabs and make it happen. Anyway, I just loved how they came together in this book. Kandi Steiner is another new to me author that I'm absolutely loving. Like, truly, they just all hit for me. This is a series that I need to finish because I know that the next book is out, and I did not read Fair Catch, okay? I just jumped to book 2, but I absolutely loved this. It was everything. I rated it a 5 as well. I also know that I read Pen Pal by J.T Geissinger, okay? And aside, and these are huge asides, okay? Aside from the way that this book was marketed, because I'm going to agree, this is not a romance. It was not a romance. It should not have been marketed that way. And, you know, maybe some trigger warnings should have been added to this. I will say, I'll go on record in saying it, in my opinion, I could understand why she said that this had a non-traditional HEA. And that is because I do think this is an erotic thriller, okay, that has a love story with a couple that is together in the end. And the way in which that couple is together in the end reminds me, okay, of a graphic novel that I read this year that I thoroughly loved. And that ending was absolutely an HEA. So I have yet to really parse out the gray space between classifying that as a happily ever after and not giving it to this book. However, I'll just say this starts out with Kayla, who we meet at her husband's funeral in the beginning of this book. She's grieving, she's at a loss, and she is trying to pick up the pieces of her life on her own. And some of those pieces is this huge old Victorian home that is just falling apart. There's a lot of odd paranormal activity happening. I mean, drawers opening, light bulbs blowing up. Things are going a little bonkers up in this home. And so she's trying to fix those things. And also, she gets this random letter from a stranger from the Washington Penitentiary. And it says something like, "I'll wait for you forever if I have to." And she begins this pen pal relationship while she starts this connection that she has with this stranger that just kind of drops in out of nowhere. This is very spicy. And I will say that the ending of this really ticked up my rating, and I found it a lot more satiating than the journey to get there, because there were a lot of reveals as to what's actually going on in this home, why they're happening, the letters, this random stranger, and I picked up on some of those before I probably should have. However, I thoroughly enjoyed the ending. I did. I'm just gonna say it. I'm in the minority here where I enjoyed the ending. I thought the ending was absolutely beautiful. I went into this book also knowing that it wasn't a romance. I knew that it was a romance. Let's just be real here. I knew it wasn't going to be a romance back when Jen invited me onto her channel to interview JT. It was very obvious and clear to me that this was going to be a passion book for her. In her recommendations for reading, in the way that she described the experience of writing this being similar to Perfect Strangers, it just felt like the book that she wanted to write, and I suspected then it was not going to be a romance. So I really wasn't surprised. I'm just going to be honest. I wasn't surprised. What did surprise me were the lack of trigger warnings and things like that in terms of like actual content of the book and how it was marketed, you know? Just say it's a thriller, girl. But anyway, outside of all of that, I enjoyed the ending and I'm not at all sorry about it. So I think I wrapped the month up with Aka War for the SJ Emelong, which I will say upon reread, I definitely softened towards Elaine. If you don't know, I am not a fan of Elaine. I think that she is as delicate a flower as to the ones that she tends to. And I've had issues with her character. Yet upon this reread, I was really able to see her trauma and be challenged by the fact that the characters that I love so much, okay, how they hold Elaine up to rationalize their choices and their sacrifices. I realized reading this time around that choice that they make is not at all Elaine's fault. And so I was able to see that. You know, I softened a bit towards her, and I thoroughly enjoyed that about this reread, ironically. And I also thought that the pacing really picked up, and I was just on board. We're getting ready and we're going to freaking war in this. And I loved every second of it. I've been loving the SJM along. I am behind on certain reads, but I've been in tow, okay, when it comes to the ACOTAR portion of it, and it's been a lot of fun. So I think that's wrapping up my September. I will go over like some favorites, books that I'm still thinking about, and that's definitely Breaking Meredith, okay, by Izzy Sweet. Thank you, Melissa, because I absolutely loved this. I'm also going to give a shout out to A Letter to Whiskey by Kandi Steiner. This is the first that I picked up from her, and I want to thank Kate for sending me this book, for sending me this copy. I will be reading the chapters from Jamie's perspective that's in the anniversary, okay, edition in the month of December. I've already wrapped it. It's going to be a book in my bookish advent calendar, so I loved this. I really did. Is it angsty? Is it toxic? Yes. But the way that she likens her love for him to liquor and recovery was just stand out to me. I loved it. Of course, I've got To Hold Up Flawless by Elsie Silver. That was another favorite. Also, I'll precede that one with Craving Kiva by Zoe Draven. Oh, that was a delicious alien romance where our hero is being exploited in a brothel, and our heroine seeks his services to come out of her shell. And I just loved it. I have got to get back to that series. And Before I Let Go by Kennedy freaking Ryan. Full stop. All that's needed to be said has been said on this channel, I think, when it comes to this one. So all that there is left is reverence. Okay. This was a standout reading experience for me. It was one of the best that I had all year. I was just living for the representation. I was gut punched with all of the pain and the glee and just everything. And the fact that she DM'd me while I was reading it, I will never be able to recreate that experience. It was just one of those, this is why I read, right? So absolutely loved that. Of course, it's a favorite. It comes out on the 15th. I mean, get into it. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up here. Okay, I've been yammering on. This is gonna be fun to edit. I'm really glad that I wrapped this up and got this out. Thank you for being here and joining me. Please consider subscribing and sticking around, and I will see you in the next one.